Hey everyone! We are so excited to be here with you today in the DEF CON. I'm Tal Bebchuk, and I'm from Velo. I'm an R&D team lead at Velo, and with me is Paulina, and she's the product manager at our team as well. And together, we are leading the team that, among many other things, we are developing all of the developer tools that offer to you by the Velo team for debugging and testing your site. So both of us, we are living in Tel Aviv, and this is great, but finding a parking lot can be like a big nightmare. I can promise you, even worse than Manhattan. We can spend a lot of time during the day, during the night, just looking for a specific parking spot. We have a bit of lucky because Tel Aviv municipality offers a few parking lots in the city, and they're discounted to the residents of the city. And even we can find them in a specific site that the municipality built. But unfortunately, most of them, in most of the time, will be occupied, which is not that fun. So what will we do? We will look for the specific parking lot that we love, either by going to the site and check the availability status, or really by driving there. It will be occupied, it will be full. So we will try another one. We will drive there, or we'll go to the site and look for another parking spot in the parking lot, and it will be occupied as well. This is not fun. Actually, it's not fun at all.
So wouldn't that be great if we had one site to give us the live status of all of our favorite parking lots? Well, guess what? This is exactly what we did. We built a website exactly for this purpose. And of course, this is Wix website. So let's talk a bit about the development lifecycle of building a site. We start with designing our site and adding some functionality using code. Then we want to test it and make sure everything is working as expected. And then we want to create a staging environment, which is the last step before deploying to production. The staging environment allows us to test our recent changes and to make sure everything is working as expected. And then if it does, we can deploy our changes live. When our site is live, we want to be able to monitor and to make sure that there are no issues or bugs in production. Also important to note here that at every stage that we have just discussed, we may detect issues which will require us to troubleshoot, debug, fix them, test them, and so on. Okay, so what we're going to do today is walk you through the various testing and debugging tools that you as Velo developers have at every stage of the development lifecycle. So let's start.
Okay, so as Paulina described, we want to build the site of the parking together. The first thing will be to implement it. And when we implement it, we will for sure want to be able to test it. So we will want to test the backend logic and the UI with the code. Let's try to do it together. Okay, this is the live site that we have. We have few parking lots, sorry. We have 6 in the number that we can see here. These are like Arlozorov, Asuta, Basel, many Israeli names. And we can see that for each of them, we have the status. The status will be in specific color. It will be red for full parking lot, green for free parking lot, and orange or yellow, whatever you will choose, for the few parking spot. You can click on the Get Current Status and then get the updated status in live. And actually, that's it. This is the site that we want to build together. Okay, so the first use case will be to get parking status for specific parking ID, specific parking lot in Tel Aviv. So this will be the URL that we are going to use. And we can see that it requires a specific parking ID. We will use the query selector for parking details table, and we will put it into parking details. Now we went to play icon at the left of the IDE, and we can see the trigger backend function or functional testing tool that exists for you as Velo developers. We can see that we have the get status for parking function, and the parameters that this function gets is the parking ID. So let's try to use 3. And we will press on run. And then we'll be able to see in the right that we are getting an object with the ID 3, the date, the status, which is full, the name of the parking lot, and all the data that we asked from this URL. So this is the trigger backend function, a really cool feature that enables you to test in live whatever you are implementing in your backend function. And this is the play icon at the left. Cool. So we implemented the backend side, but we want to really show it to the user. So we need to connect it to the client. Sorry. So we have this function in the home page, in the client page, actually, and we use the get current parking status, which gets a list of the parking IDs, which are our favorites. And we have a repeater. The repeater is parking repeater. And we want to put the data that we get from the server in the data of the parking repeater. So this is exactly what we are doing here. Let's add another console log just to make sure that we are fine. Let's print the parking details and maybe add another console log so we will make sure that this is exactly what we asked. Great, parking details are. And now let's use the preview. The preview enables us to see kind of the live site inside the editor, so we can make sure that we see all the data that was connected to the repeater in live, and we see also the logs that we printed to the console. Okay, so we have the backend implemented, we have the client implemented. It works. I think that we can continue.
Cool. So we have our functionality developed and it seems to be working fine. The next thing I want to do, I want to share it with my QA team. I want them to test everything end to end and to make sure that there are no unexpected issues. I can do this by creating a test site. How many people here have used this capability before? Okay, I see some hands. Let's try and see it together. So I will start with creating a test site. Test site is a private shareable version of our site, which allows us to test our functionality. Okay, amazing. Let's open our test site. We can see that the test site basically imitates the production environment. I can test here all of my functionality end to end. I can also test here a few stuff which I'm not able to test on preview mode, like the Pay API and the members area. Important to note here that test site is running against my live data, so we need to be aware of this. Okay, I can manage my test site in, sorry. Okay, so I can manage my test site in the release manager within the dashboard. So let's open it together. Okay, so in the release manager, I can see the live version of my site and the test site version. And I can also edit the exposure of my site, which basically allows me to gradually roll out a functionality I'm not sure of. But in this case, let's just set the exposure to 100%, which is exactly the same as publishing the site live. We can also do the exact same thing by clicking on the publish button within the editor. Okay, amazing. So our site is now live. Yay. Great. The next thing that we want to do now is to monitor our site and make sure that there are no unexpected issues on production. So we will start by opening the monitoring dashboard. How many people here have ever used this feature? Well, I see that not a lot. I only see Tal. So let's try and see this together. I can, just a second. So I can open the monitoring dashboard. I can find it under developer tools in the dashboard, yes. So the monitoring dashboard allows me to track my backend performance. I can see here all of my backend requests. I see that I don't have any throttled or timeout requests, which is great. I can see the distribution of my backend requests over time. For now, the filter is set for the last 30 days. I can also see the percentiles of the duration. I see that I don't have any failed requests, which is amazing. I also have a table in which I can see the summary of everything, percentage of traffic, throttled requests, errors, and so on. And I also have the option to filter this dashboard for a specific function if I want to. For example, we can pick get current parking status and see the information regarding this specific function. But from a look on the dashboard, we see that everything seems to be fine, which is great. But this is just my backend code, right? So the next thing I want to do is I want to go and take a look at my log history using Google Operations. Please raise your hand if you have ever connected your site to Google Operations. Okay, I see that a few of you did, which is great. It is a super important feature. So I want to show you. Okay, so I can find it under the tools tab as well, which will lead me to the developer tools in the dashboard. So the Google Operations allows me to see the log history of my site and to see if there were any errors or unexpected issues there. I can filter for the last 7 days, for example, and I can also choose to view at my errors. So I actually see quite a few. Let's open one of them. Okay, so I see the error is cannot read property query selector. And under source location, I can see that this is happening in parking service.js file, line 29. And I also can see that I saw this error I see it like a couple of times. Tal, can you help me to investigate this issue, please?
Yeah, sure. I think that I saw it with you, so maybe let's try to take a look. Okay, so it seems like we have a problem. Yeah, we have some logs in the site and that we saw in the Google Operations, and we saw like in highlights the error of cannot read query selector of null. What will be null? I have no idea. So the next thing we have live site, we need to troubleshoot it. So what can we do? Try to understand the logs, try to recreate it maybe, and at the end, we're gonna fix the problem. So bear with us. So, okay, let's go to the parking service.js it was. line 29, and we see that actually we have here parking details dot query selector in HTML. Okay, it sounds like familiar. We implemented this function together at the beginning of this talk, and I'm pretty sure that we tested it with the function testing. So maybe it's somewhere else. Let's see. And we can see that there is another function which I don't know that uses this function, get random parking. I didn't implement this function, but actually I'm not working alone, so maybe it's a bug that I'm not aware of. So I think that the next thing that we want to do is to try to recreate the issue and try to understand what is the origin of the bug. Okay, so this will be the live site. Great, and I want to introduce you a cool feature that we have, site events under the logs, which gives us the ability to see live logs of the site like immediately. So we refresh this page, and now we can see that immediately we are getting all the logs that exist in the site. So we see the parking details are and all the details that we printed. And now I see this button, get random parking lots, and we see the error. Okay, we see the source location, parking service JS, line 30, but actually it's the same place and the same error, so maybe it can help us. Let's click it again, multiple times. Maybe let's go back to, okay, now we see something that looks good. But okay, we clicked many times and we see the problem, the log over and over again. So I think that this will lead us to the solution. So let's go back to this function. We see parking details, which will be a parking details dot query selector of blah, blah, blah. Okay, and the query selector can be null. We see that the URL that we talked about it before. Let's go to it and let's use the ID tree. Let's open the DevTools and try to really understand and debug what we do. So document query selector with the same query selector that we used to use. And this is how we implemented. Okay, we get a full HTML object with all the details that we need to understand the status of the parking lot. Okay, this is what we know and it worked, we checked. But let's try to put another ID, 3, 5, 6, 7. We will use the same query selector and it will be null. Okay, the error was query selector of null. So now it seems like we know what is the problem. In some cases, parking details can be null. So let's solve it with a really easy practice. Just add an if statement, if parking details, so do whatever you want to do, and the regular thing, and if not, just return an empty object. Let's try it again. So we will click in the play icon in the left. Let's try it again with parking ID 3 to make sure that we didn't ruin anything. The same object that we used to get. Let's run on parking ID. And we get an empty object. I think we solved the backend function. But actually, it's not the end. We saw that there is something like when the user clicks on the get random parking, we see that in some cases, when it works, he gets a message of the parking ID and the status. But in some cases, it will not work. And now we will get an empty object. And we want to make sure to display something to the user, something meaningful. So let's fix it also in the client side. So we went to the home page. And now let's try to find this random button that we didn't build. Okay, we have the get random parking and we see the ID is random parking. Let's see the ID of the button that was added. Okay, bien go. Yeah, random parking, and this will be the text that we want to control on. So let's do it together. We want that in case of the random parking status or ID actually will be undefined or null or something, just they won't be exist. We want the okay, if the status is full, we will behave the same. But if it's not full, if it's empty, we want to display another message to the user. So the text will be, I don't know, parking ID is not valid, let's say, and we will show the text. Try again, so we'll get the chance to get a new random number. Let's test it using the preview. Okay, so let's go to a preview. We see that the site looks okay. And now I can tell you that the site event that we just talked about can actually show you also events from the preview frame. So let's click in on get random parking lot, and we got an ID 3 and the parking status 3, which is amazing. The logs are empty. Great. Let's try to do it again. And we got the new message of parking ID is not valid. And we see that the logs are empty as well. So I think we won. Actually, we can do like one specific check and adding another log for the future Tal and Paulina. So just to make sure that we'll be able to debug it really easily and to see the logs either in the preview or in the live site, in the live events, or in the Google operations. So we will add another log. Parking ID was not defined, was not valid. And I think we're fine, and we can publish this site and make sure that it works. Cool.
Cool. So we went over the various testing and debugging tools that we have at Fellow, and we found them to be super helpful for detecting unexpected issues and decreasing the chances of bugs on our live sites. So let's try to sum it all up and to make sure it is clear which tool to use at every stage of the development lifecycle.
So we got a quick quiz for you to make sure that you were with us and you're now able to use those tools. So let's see. We developed a new functionality in our site, and now we want to test it. What can we use?
Maybe we can use the preview mode.
I think you're actually right. Okay, so we can use the preview mode. We can use the site events to see the logs, and we can use the functional testing, the play icon in the left that we can use for backend functions.
Cool. So let's say that we want to send a draft of our site to the site owner to get her approval. What tool can we use for this?
I think we can use test site. What do you say?
You are correct.
Wow.
Test site indeed will be the perfect tool for this.
Okay, so we moved on, we published the site, and now we want to monitor the backend function. Do we have any option to do it?
How about Google Operations?
I think it will work. And actually, we have another new feature from the last year of the monitoring dashboard that will help you a lot as well.
Okay, so our final question. We understand that we have a problem on our live site and we want to see the logs to detect it. Which tool should we open?
Wow, so here we have a lot of options. It will be the Google operations, but I think there are more, not only the Google operations.
Indeed, so we can also use the site event and try to reproduce the problem in real time.
Wow.
Okay, so we shared with you today all of our existing testing and debugging tools, but we have a lot more planned, and I wanted to share with you a sneak peek of it. So we want to provide even a faster feedback loop. And then we also want to provide you a framework to allow you run automated tests on your Wix sites. Finally, we want to extend the monitoring dashboard and add another section to allow you monitor your data queries within the board. So a lot more is planned, so stay tuned.
So before just saying thank you, we hope that you learned something new today, and we can't wait to see you use those tools in your day-to-day work. Like, try them. We want your feedback. Say us what you think, what can be improved. And thanks a lot for being with us.